So here we have Joe.
Pleasure.
Just met him, 2 minutes ago?
If that.
And
Imaginary
told
one.
him about my big question. What do you think happens after this life? So what's your take on that?
Probably not much. Well, life happens after life, and the idea that it continues, not my life necessarily, but everything
Other
else
people's.
that
So
other people's
the world
lives.
doesn't end
without
us. Okay.
Though it could also be seen to end because I'm not experiencing it, me being the holder of gaze.
Yeah.
I no longer experience it.
Yeah.
Pretty biological and scientific, honestly. The idea that body decomposes, energy goes out. Probably worms or bacteria or something else takes that.
Yeah, and I would agree. Our body decomposes. Do you feel like you have a soul or anything about you that would outlast your body?
Well, I would say the energy does.
Yeah.
The actual physical manifestation of energy.
Yeah.
Past that, I mean, I haven't experienced the other side to my knowledge.
Yeah.
So I can't really be like, hey, that's
and
the way.
I'll be the first to, I go to a church. I'm a Christian.
Do your thing.
It's a faith, so it's not proof. It's not like I have scientific proof of anything. So I'm not here to, say.
Dude,
do you have any experience with any kind of religion or faith or anything?
All Abrahamic religions I have experience with. Different sections
Judaism,
of
Islam,
Christianity. A lot of Eastern Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, Hinduism, different sects of Hinduism, or what is
interesting.
Hinduism itself is kind of hard to define because it's so vast and more or less cultural rather than simply religious in stance, and even the religious part transfers and changes depending on so many other
where you're from or where you grew up or
where you fall in the system of things and all of that.
Now is that when you say experience people you've known or you've done your own personal search or
both? Yeah. I mean, I think you need both to really start to grasp the ideas. For the Hindu part, I mean, I have a couple of Hindu friends, but one of them I've really gotten into deep talks with is from Nepal. Okay. And Hindu and all of that. And
I always think of Buddhism from Nepal.
Yeah.
So Hindu.
Well, but Hindu crosses over too.
Yeah.
To it. In fact, I mean, there's so many similarities between Hinduism and Buddhism. I think it was, who was it? It was Alan Watts said Buddhism was Hinduism for export. So, kind of get into it. But no, also in Nepal there is a decent Hindu population because of the proximity.
Yeah. Now, did you grow up with a family religion, one that you were...
No. My dad claims recovering Catholic in some ideas. But also, too, he's now, I guess if you convert or whatever you do, he practices Buddhism and Taoism.
Oh, okay.
One of my brothers is Muslim.
Okay.
Practicing Muslim.
Yeah.
One of them just philosopher, and then me, I usually tend to stick more towards the Taoist point of view.
Tell me about Taoist. I don't know too much about that.
That is it's not even religion, it's philosophy, equilibrium, almost easiest way to explain it.
That's not spelled T-A.
Yes.
Taoism.
Tao.
It's called Tao. Okay. So it's
name.
Is it associated with like Confucianism? Like kind of an ethical system?
It's associated, but there's also historical conflict between Taoists and Confucianism. Confucianism, I would say, at least on the philosophical lines, is very much the same. And I should also say I'm not Taoist religion, Taoist philosophy. I don't practice the Taoist religion, which is
that has the biggest influence on you, maybe?
Definitely.
Now, do they have a holy book, holy scripture kind of thing? Or?
Not necessarily. You could argue it's the Tao Te Ching, but even that, not completely either.
Was there a personality associated with it, like Confucius, not Confucius,
Lao Tzu, but Lao Tzu too is not an actual person necessarily, as much as a type of person. And I mean, people say he existed, but that span of time is also between hundreds of years. They don't know if it was actually a person that existed or a series of people or just someone that gave this book, the Tao Te Ching, to a guard.
Yeah.
The tower, I mean, stories, some say it was Chengzu, another philosopher, prominent philosopher, that was actually Lao Tzu, and a whole lot of back and forth, but all of that is just kind of, that's neither here nor there. It really doesn't matter in that sense of it.
Do you, what attracts you to Taoism?
It made sense. It made sense because of the rule of opposites not being opposites and being actually the same thing, almost. I mean,
is that where the yin-yang thing comes in?
It plays into that, yeah. I mean, the yin-yang, too, actually breaks down a lot more than just what people see. It's mathematical equations actually go into it, too. 1 equals 2, 2 equals 4, 4 equals 8, 8 equals 64, 64, so forth, so on, up to 10,000. But all of them play special roles in how balance in the world interacts and how things interact.
So it made sense. It made sense for your life now, or kind of thing, or does it?
Because I mean, everything has its counter. Everything has its equalizer, its other part to it.
Do you feel like you have a purpose in life?
Purpose in what sense?
Well,
fatalistic.
Kind of associated with that question is, where'd the purpose come from? You know, so like, yeah. Do you feel like there's a reason for your existence, and does it come from Taoism, or does it come from somewhere else, or did you know what I mean?
Well, that's hard to really,
or maybe you don't have a purpose.
Explain too, because I have to understand too that my mind is limited to itself, and the idea that how I create reason or what I find to be reason or anything like that is only within my spectrum of knowledge and understanding of what the possibilities could be. And
someone else might say it's not reasonable, but it's depending on the person.
It could be, because I mean, then you get into the idea too of faith that you brought up earlier. I mean, if someone has that as their reason, their idea of faith, and that's a part of them and their reasoning for things, I can't say that's wrong.
Right.
I can't be like, nope, that's totally incorrect. And how that comes about is, you know, their way of going through things or understanding the world. And not saying I'm different, but that's not even as much a question to myself or a question that I think needs answering. Because regardless of if there is or is not, it's going to be. And,
whether we believe it or not.
And I've found, especially in my own life, and I'm sure other people can relate to it too, of the idea that, you know, I can get so caught up in these ideas of questions of, do I have a purpose? When really I could better spend my time, my efforts and energies in living my life in the present rather than worrying about the future or the past. So I'll be fulfilling my purpose whether I know it or not, if I have one or not, by continuing on regardless of the fact if I do or don't. But my mind wants to get caught up in those questions, and I become almost paralyzed or useless at times, trying to debate whether I have a purpose or not rather than doing it. So rather than participating, I'll be caught on the sidelines. So that kind of question, I mean, at the end of the day, does it...
Would you say that... Okay, so you were saying that your spirit, or your energy continues after your
physical
body.
energy.
So I was going to ask, do you think you believe in God or a higher power? But when you say that your physical energy continues, do you feel like it has a personality still? Like, will you exist after you die, or do you think...
I don't think I, as I am, could exist past that, even if it was another sense. Simply because that would be if I did exist in some sort of personality or spirit form. that awareness that now comes about with such a huge change would not be me. That would automatically reshape everything, whether it be heaven, hell, nothing, everything.
Right. And so whatever. So in your thinking, if you did have some kind of consciousness, that consciousness could not be held accountable for what you did in this life because it's a totally different you.
Or it's not even the same conscious anymore,
right.
too.
Right.
Like accountability, I don't know if accountability is always the idea. Accountability, that's a rough one because I'm, again, only accountable in this life. Accountability in the next, you know.
Yeah.
You can't, holding accountable for something that is new or different and completely changed. I don't know.
If you did have a soul that has consciousness, and I mean it's really you, just separated from your body, the decisions that you make and the things that you do in this life would affect what that soul is in the next. I mean, if you could conceive of that, it's just that you don't believe that. So.
Yeah. If I could conceive of that, I could see that as being a possibility.
Yeah. Do you think, how do you deal with, is science real big for you?
I mean,
or
it
not
is.
So much?
It's just life.
It is what it is?
Yeah.
So, I mean, when I say science, I mean, do you feel like do you think if God existed, do you think there is something that he could do to prove himself to you? You know, to show you that he exists?
I've thought about that, and I've wondered, again, kind of like the do I have a purpose question. Does it matter?
Yeah.
Because, again, it goes back, it just keeps filtering back to previous things we've talked about, which is, let's say it did, or not. I mean, take the Bhagavad Gita, for instance, where Krishna reveals its true self.
Okay.
That's something that is just all-inspiring, all magnificent, good, bad, evil, the encompasses of all things. For someone of mortal nature to experience that's even in any sense that you want to take it, that's changing. That's now completely changed the rules of the future, the past, and the present. It's changed the game completely. So, I mean, would I even want that? I don't know if I'd even want that.
Yeah, I was wondering if you had a choice, a clear choice, would you want to live after you die? Would you want to go on?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Eternity's a hell of a long time.
It is.
So,
although, if just one way to think about it is, I kind of think that time is the result of a definite beginning and a definite end, and so we have time here on Earth because it's a limited existence.
It's an experience.
But if in eternity, I don't even know if there would be time, as we...
And that actually goes along a lot of scientific idea, too. And the fact that time is just really a basis of gravity and everything like that.
Yeah.
So changes depending on...
I mean, as a Christian, I'll just tell you, I don't believe in floating around on a cloud and playing a harp,
Yeah.
And because, I mean... And I don't think it's about me being bored or not,
but it's just, if it's all present, all eternal, all what it's painted out to be, the afterlife, then it is all.
I mean, as I read the Bible, there's a lot of imagery associated, the most flowery or vivid, I should say, for hell, it's not flowery, but the most vivid imagery in the Bible is when it's describing things that are otherworldly, like heaven or hell. And so I really believe that it's trying to use things that we can associate with to understand something that's out of this world, And so all I know is heaven's really good and hell's really bad. That's
this one's nice, that one is
right. And I don't want to go to hell, and I do want to go to heaven. I do think it has to do with being in a right relationship with God in eternity and knowing Him. So for me as a Christian, it's not about am I going to get streets of gold or like all that stuff. It's
all
just using that imagery to say that it's really good. And so so hell would be like not being in God's absence, because really by definition God would be the God of the entire universe. There's not any place that He doesn't exist, but it would be in a wrong relationship with Him. In other words, experiencing His anger and
the
His
other
wrath.
side of it.
So, and a lot of people that I've talked with say, well, God's a God of love. He doesn't have anger, or there's no bad part about Him. But even a good person who's totally good would get mad at a child being abused, for example, and so there is anger, and a good human judge would want to make sure that lawbreakers don't go unpunished. He would believe, justice is a good thing, So, but, and most people will say they like justice because they want the bad guy to get caught and they want the good guy to get rewarded, But do I want justice? I have to say no, because I've done a lot of bad things in my life, and I don't want what I deserve, which is the punishment of,
But what one deserves, that's always, arguing just is always an interesting situation. Not necessarily arguing with another person, but even internally.
What is just?
What is just becomes a very interesting thing.
Yeah.
And I think even that definition of just, like you were saying with the imagery of heaven and hell, just being that of morality, or any sense of morality, is even unworldly. In its own self. So
there's no real justice here on earth. Is that what you're getting at?
Or even our perception of what is just, it's flawed within that sense. Because if justice and the idea that it exists, let's say it does for a second, it'd have to take into consideration every thought, desire, feeling, and everything else like that. So we're already looking at an infinite, or looking at an impossibility within the human spectrum to be able to comprehend idea and everything like that. So to discern what is just against that sort of situation would have to already take on the idea of something more out there.
Well, I think justice, like heaven and hell, are concepts that are otherworldly.
Exactly. So it would
I think that's what you're just saying.
That,
So it's like, but we can get a taste of heaven and a taste of hell, and I think we do get that here on earth. We don't experience the full force of it, and I think we can get a taste of justice too. So we can get an idea of what it's about. And maybe have a human understanding of it, but not a complete understanding.
But I think that too is the interesting part and the amazing part of the humility too that is associated with any religion, philosophy, or just being human. Is the fact that you recognize it's just a taste. It's not the complete. It's not the end all be all. And as humans, we tend to get that taste and say that's the whole piece of the pie. Rather than carrying that idea and the pre-idea of this being a taste.
And there's much more to
real
learn.
Degree.
There's much more to taste.
And not to be steadfast.
When you say that you've kind of experienced all the different religions, do you see any common threads in them all, or any?
Don't be a dick.
Okay.
It's pretty much what it boils down to.
They all have an ethical system. And I actually believe, like every religion that's worth anything has been around for generations because it has a strong sense of ethics of some sort.
Well, and it gives guidance. It gives path.
Gives guidance. There's some cults that are, fatalistic and damaging, but I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about like major world religions and things like that have been around for generations.
A period of time.
So, and I don't know, like, if you've really, how much you've looked into, say, Christianity or whatever, but just to give you a little perspective on, like what I as a Christian would believe. You're familiar with Adam and Eve and all that. So when Adam and Eve rebelled against God by going against his one rule, little rule,
don't eat that.
Don't eat that.
Apple.
Right. They were given the knowledge of good and evil.
Yeah.
And so there's this sense that everybody now has a conscience. So and so I, as a Christian, I look around the world and I see, yes, everybody does have a sense of right and wrong. Now they do differ in the specifics. Like it'll say, one religion will say, well, you can have no more than 7 wives, and another would say, no, you can have 1 wife, but no religion says be a, I can't use that word, but a jerk, and and just take any person you want. You see what I'm saying? So they all have the same general belief, affected by culture. But then here's kind of an example. I actually went to Africa to work as Kenya, and to help build a doctor's house and that sort of thing. And I was talking. I mean, we met people from local tribes and things like that. And one guy. Well, I guess I didn't meet this tribe personally, but I heard about it. They actually believe that it's okay to steal the cattle from the next tribe. And they teach their children that. So I began to think, what about this conscience we have? Don't we all have the sense of right and wrong? Doesn't this disprove that
how is that right or wrong, though?
Stealing cattle? From the other tribe? From the other tribe. I'm just saying, I believe most people think it's wrong to steal something, that take something that's not yours, So, but I found out that they actually believe that those cattle were theirs several generations ago, and they're taking them back. So, most people, when they do something that they believe to be wrong, they'll come up with some kind of an excuse why it's okay for me. And the very fact that we have an excuse shows that deep down we do know it's wrong.
Some of the time. Because, I mean, too, there's again, it was Hindu in its origin, but I forget the exact word or phrase that's used, but it more or less just translates out to, like, it's almost impossible to take, or like, to
steal something.
Well, to take, because there is no ownership. So right now we could go right and wrong, but that idea of right and wrong is based off ownership. Do we own it? And then how did we come up with ownership? So if we continue to trace it back, there was a base moral idea, or someone going, we're going to have this thing called ownership, where now it's wrong for you to take my stuff. But if that ownership idea didn't exist, then you wouldn't have that question of morality. That right and wrong wouldn't.
Here's a real practical question. I don't know if you have do you have a car?
Oh yeah.
Do you dig yourself out in the winter?
Oh hell yeah.
Do you put the dibs out?
No, I don't. I don't. But a lot of people do.
I mean that's
I respect the dibs.
And I mean that's something like, okay, we could say we don't believe in ownership, but you know what?
Well, I didn't say
I worked for that spot.
I didn't believe in ownership. But recognizing what ownership actually is and its root is an important part. Like, I may not believe in everything society and government does. Just because I don't believe in it doesn't make it a real part of my existence.
But we have to exist within the system.
If I choose to exist within this system and participate in this system, I must play by the rules. So then rules, ideas, society, and everything else comes together. So now that these rules, ideas, and everything else are put into play, for me to have that, I have to participate and be okay with it and accept that. Or accept the consequences by those rules. So
now, you don't believe in God or a higher power of any sort, right?
Yes, no, kinda.
I'll tell you, I get back to the very basic question of where did all of this come from? And I'm not saying evolution or anything like that. I'm saying even before anything, how is there anything? Like, scientists will say Big Bang, right?
I have two responses.
Okay.
One, I've theorized different possibilities between the scientific way of looking at it and Big Bang being a real possibility, multi-dimensional universes and everything like that when you actually get into the astrophysics of things.
Mm-hmm.
Possible. Time, again, if we want to go back to the idea of time, can be argued that because it exists within our realm in the way we understand it, in this dimension, in this physical world, does not mean that time does actually exist outside this physical world or this dimension or
and so
anything
you
like that.
apply the same thing to matter and energy.
It could be infinite just as anything else, and to put a point on infinite is impossible.
Yeah.
So that's one part of it. The other question is, or other answer, which is just another question. Why does it matter that I know where it comes from?
The reason I asked that question about God or a higher power when I did is
where it all came from.
Yeah.
Why do I need to know that?
But the reason it matters is we were talking about rules, right?
Yeah.
And do we accept the rules? And so
these are rules of society.
Yeah. If there was a God, are you open to the idea that God could exist, like the possibility, or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So if there is a creator that made everything and made us.
Well, see, that's where my belief could actually differ.
Yeah.
Is because if there is one God.
Oh yeah, I know.
Then that God is also bound by the same basic rule of there's something prior to that.
Yeah. Well, what I could just say, like, for me as a Christian, like, the first 5 words of the Bible are really profound. It says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." And, in the beginning, God created. So what it's implying is, in the beginning, God was there already.
Yeah.
So I would say God is the one thing that was not created, was already there,
but there
has existed
already lies
forever.
like the paradox in my mind.
It's a paradox, yeah.
So that's the interesting part, and it's beyond the paradox.
It's like saying,
that's interesting.
In the beginning, God had already existed forever.
Yeah.
So, and then at some point, He brings into being everything else.
Yeah.
So as a Christian, I would say I'm a creation.
Yeah.
I'm not a creator.
Yeah.
God is the only creator, and so He would also be the creator of laws, physical laws of gravity, and physical and moral laws. And I mean,
we create a lot of those.
Well, I know, yeah, but so when I say, is it possible? Maybe I should be more specific. Is it possible that the God of the Bible exists?
The one described in the Bible?
Yeah.
Not necessarily. And that is because so many different... I mean, the King James Bible, are we talking here as the only Bible? Or are there more Bibles than that? I mean, we start to run into the ideas of what man has also created alongside. I mean,
as a Christian, I would say in the original language texts, because there's something lost in the translation.
Oh, there's a lot lost.
Yeah.
I mean, even like using the human form, even in the ideas of epiphany, if the stories are true within Bible, Quran, and all of that, when God speaks through a human being, that human being is also flawed. So the instrument kind of goes through, because if that instrument is already flawed, and the message may not come through as clear. So even in that sense, that we simply rely, and without question of ourselves and what we believe to be true, in what a human that is flawed has recorded down, even if it is the dredge word, then we're already looking at a flawed model.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. But I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I can't say that what is depicted in the Bible, if it does exist, is the exact definition of that. So I try not to say anything that's oh yes, this is exactly what I believe in. This I would rather.
Yeah, I try not to be like say this is what you believe, but is it possible? You know.
I mean, if there's so much I don't know, so
do you think if you were to die tonight, you know, I mean, we're not guaranteed another day of life.
No, I'm not guaranteed
no, I mean, we're one heartbeat away from death, really. I mean, my heart I can't even control it. You know, I guess I could make it stop beating, but I can't.
I got a one-way maneuver on that.
Yeah. Thing. So if you did die and you woke up and you were being judged by God, what do you, and it's like, whoa. The God of the Bible, you really do exist, you know. What do you think he would say? Like, if you know, and I'm not sure. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, because I've pondered that question, because I've pondered a lot of these things.
It's kind of a key question, you know.
And if there is, and it does judge, then it also knows I'm flawed.
Yeah.
It knows that I can't always do that. But it also knows that I'm not letting that simple fact of it does or does not exist to cripple my sense of morality or what I believe to be right.
Now, if this God of the Bible, you know, or as traditional Christianity knows it, there would be a heaven and there would be a hell. There would be some people that go to heaven, some that go to hell. You know that you're flawed, so you know you're not a perfect person, but you feel like you would go to heaven. Do you feel like you're different than... And now I'm not just saying, like, what do you believe? I'm saying if it was all according to your understanding of Christianity, because, you know, again, I don't know how well you've read the Bible or what you know about it.
I've gone through it and I've talked with...
So, according to your understanding of Christianity, do you think you would be different somehow from, say, a person that would end up in hell? You know, like, what would be the difference?
Because I try and be pretty accountable with myself. I check my actions. I try and ask not as much how does this affect me, but how does this affect someone else prior to my action.
Now let's say there was someone who doesn't do that, but they grew up with a really bad situation, poor home training. You know, they're not.
Has someone done the best job they could?
Yeah.
Have they tried? Have they put forth their effort to do the best they could?
Yeah.
Because if I'm judged simply on my action and not what is truly within
in your heart, then so you feel like God would see your heart and your intentions.
Well, it better, or else that's a horrible God.
Yeah.
To have. That's not a God. That's an asshole. Sorry. But that's what it comes down to, because it's got to be able to judge the entirety of me, not parts. And I try and be pretty good about just my everyday interactions.
So do you feel like your good deeds or actions, now again, you don't believe this, but according to what you understand of Christianity, do you feel like it's a balance scale kind of a thing, like where people are put in the scales and found to be wanting?
If it was a balance scale, it'd have to have about 16 arms and all sorts of different weights, and just, I mean, it's
a complicated judgment.
It's not an easy thing that you're just like, oh, this side, oh, well, look at that.
Because kind of a common misunderstanding of Christianity is that it is a balance, that Christians are saying you have to go to church, say your prayers, read the Bible, or even then there's a lot of people who say Christianity is all about social justice, so you have to do certain actions in social justice, or they'll say it's about just being a nice person, you know, opening the door for people, being polite.
Well, a lot of those things too are also from the context and come from the context in which Christianity has grown.
Yeah,
it's within the social realm, and that's the flawed part.
And those are all, you know, like, I feel like those are all good things.
Oh yeah,
you know?
Just because something is flawed does not make it horrible.
And actually, like, most of those things are found in every religion. You know, certain religious rules to follow and certain cultural norms to follow. And that's what keeps our world from really going crazy, crazier than it is. You know, like the average person wants to feel like they're a good person, you know, and yes, I do I've talked to people who have killed someone before.
Yeah.
And they're nice people.
Yeah. Great human
on
beings.
a daily
Yeah.
on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And one said, well, God knows my heart. He knew, I was just defending my homies, or whatever, just defending my people. There's lots of excuses for doing it. But so the misunderstanding is the balance scale thing. So on the good side of the balance scale, we think oftentimes that the good we do should make up for the bad we do, right? Now, but the Bible really says, who gave you everything that you have? Who gave you your health, your ability to make money, your time, your energy, even your desire to want to do good? It came from God. That's what we believe as Christians. So I can't use the good, God. And then the Bible says, if you know the good you ought to do and don't do it, that too is sin.
Or even if you do the good but do it with the
wrong intention.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It continues on.
Exactly, yeah. So
if I'm holding the door for someone just so I get some extra credit and a gold star for the day, that's messed up.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing it just because that's the action that I'm doing, and without the thought or
you just do it because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't talked to you very long, but I feel like you would, if someone fell here, you'd be the first one to go and help them up.
I've had to do that a couple times on the train.
and you and I would do it because not because we're trying to win brownie points, but because it's the right thing to do.
That's another human being that just fell. Like I'm in there too with them.
If we stood before God on Judgment Day and we said, "Look at all the good things I've done,"
if you got to bring attention to it, then
that's kind of taken away from it, right? So, but even if we believe that, well, He knows my heart, He knows my intentions, even though we don't come out and say it, we do believe that, that, oh, I'm a good person because I just do what's right,
But also I'm willing, if I'm incorrect in my assumption, I'll stand by. I'll take my judgment.
So then on the other side, there's the idea that we know the wrong we ought not to do, and yet we still do it. And so
some of the time.
And so maybe I should even get back to Adam and Eve. What do you think about that whole story, whether it's true or not?
I mean, that's the
moral of the story is they bit from this tree. It doesn't even say apple, actually. Fruit.
I know, it's a fruit.
So they ate from this tree. God said, "Don't do it."
Yeah.
Why was that? Why is that such a big deal? What do you think about that? Do you think God was being fair? Or
I mean, honestly, if you were
to make up your own religion, would you start with that story?
I think that's an amazingly interesting conundrum. But I think too, I wouldn't be surprised because obviously God has a decent sense of humor if it does exist. It's got a pretty interesting sense of humor. And has a little more foresight than simple
you can see the implications of this down the road.
Long before it happens.
Yeah.
But if I like to think about if that didn't happen.
If they didn't disobey?
Yeah. Then what?
Yeah.
And that's not life. That's something else. That's already heaven. So we miss the whole purpose.
Yeah.
It's because of that we have.
I mean, the Bible talks about Adam and Eve, or at least Adam, I know, walking and talking with God in the cool of the evening, having this intimate fellowship with Him. And then immediately when he breaks God's rule, he's hiding.
Yeah.
That intimate fellowship has been broken.
Yeah.
And God reaches out to him and covers him up. And there's a sacrifice that must be made when he covers him up, because he covers him up with some skins.
Yeah.
Some animal had to be killed for that. So to there's already this theme of, in order to get back into fellowship with God, a sacrifice must be made.
Yeah.
And so that kind of builds throughout the Bible, this theme of sacrifice, and culminating in Jesus on the cross.
Yeah.
And so it's about relationship, and it's about is God God? Because the minute that they bit from that apple or fruit, whatever.
Some fruit.
They're basically saying, with their actions, not with their words, but they're basically saying, God, you're not God of my life anymore. I'm going to make my own rules. I think I want to eat from this tree. I don't care what you said, because that's what their actions are saying. And so
I don't know if it could even be conceived as that precognitive or that cognitive.
No, yeah, but then and we think it's just a like a minor little incident, but then God responds to it like, the whole world is cursed because of it. And but then one generation later, you already have a brother killing another brother, so they see the sins of the father. They think okay, or at least the one thinks it's okay to, I don't like this guy. God's giving him special treatment. I'm going to kill him, So it's pretty quick to see the implications of where that sin, that disobedience against God leads, So, yeah, so I went back to that because it's like, if we, to really understand what Christianity says about sin, if I say, well, it's wrong to lie, a person might accuse me of, well, you're just being legalistic, or you're just being nitpicky, God isn't that nitpicky, Well, if God can be that dramatic, I guess, or, about a fruit, then, and if he gave us this law in our hearts, this consciousness, it says that God placed his law in our hearts. If I know it's wrong to lie, and I'm like eating that fruit all over again. And if I know it's wrong to steal, or if I know it's wrong to use his name in vain, you go down the list of the 10 Commandments, I'm basically, every time I do that, it's an act of rebellion against God. So it's not just about that fruit, it's about how we live our lives in rebellion against God. That's what we as Christians believe. And so what can restore us to a right relationship with God, especially if God says he loves people, but he also loves justice. There must be some kind of a consequence for our law breaking. A good judge would judge sin. There would be a result. And so then the question is, well, what would be a sufficient consequence? We're sinning against the God of the universe. They're his laws. Would it be enough if I went to purgatory for 100 days? Someone might say, well, yeah, and I want to say, well, why not 101? Isn't God worth that?
How do we make decisions on punishment with children?
I don't know.
That's the
I won't
same
even
thing.
pretend to know.
Exactly.
Like for us as parents, you mean?
Yeah, as parents, or even as guardians.
See, in this life, we are definitely punishing for a different reason. We're trying to help the person to become a better person.
Is that a different reason?
Well, and I do think God does. Again, as a believer, I do think God does do that in people's lives. Like he allows us to experience the problems that our disobedience causes. We do drugs, we're going to get addicted.
And that
there are
teaches.
Consequences. Yeah,
that gives the beauty of life too,
yeah.
And the beauty of
but
that allows you to experience
in the context of death and eternity. Then justice has or I should say maybe punishment or whatever, retribution, I don't know if that's the right word to use, has a different purpose. It's not restorative, it's punitive. It's like, and you don't agree, you don't have to agree, but so the Bible is saying God is exercising his, well, I'll back up. My understanding of the Bible and what I've read through it is that God's purpose is not all about man and making us great and making us happy, and it's not a man-centered theology. It's a God-centered theology. So he created us for a purpose, and it wasn't for us, it was for him. So we exist to serve God and to please him. And part of what pleases him is showing his attributes. The Bible talks about it as revealing his glory. My glory will be made known among the nations, And, and all the way through, there's like all the different books of the Bible, different authors, everything. There's a common theme that God will be glorified.
Yeah.
Now, there's a, just to give you an example, there's a verse that talks about when the Pharaoh, you're familiar with the story of Pharaoh chasing Moses across the Red Sea.
Yeah.
So God was glorified in demonstrating his power in opening up the sea and allowing Moses and all the people of Israel to go through. He revealed his power. He was glorified, right?
Well, he did a couple things in that whole scenario.
Well, then the other part of it is not Pharaoh, but all his whole army was drowned.
Destroyed right after.
So the Bible also talks about that showing God's glory. So his power over his enemies is revealed. See what I'm saying? Not that you agree, but if you understand what I'm saying. So when God punishes injustice, gives people what they deserve, there's a part of him that is glorified.
Yeah.
He's acting justly and showing his justice. And then when he shows his mercy, because that's what the cross is all about, that God's justice must be satisfied, well, he's willing to be merciful and take that punishment for himself, or upon himself in the person of Jesus. Then his mercy is also a way of glorifying God. Like when he shows his love, he's glorified. But most people just limit it to his love. They think, well, just
and it's
God.
not the other part. But
they don't want to think about the other part.
When you look at about like a decent amount of the Bible, or the King James version of the Bible, there's a lot that has the counter too. I mean, destructions of cities.
Oh yeah.
To begin with, or even just not even the tricks, but the possibilities placed in front of, Cain and Abel to begin with, and it stretches down the line from there too. Or even going to Babel, you can go into that situation. The destruction of Babel comes into play. That theme is.
Sounds like you have a pretty good background.
Oh no, I've talked with a lot of people. I know the Bible pretty well. I know different interpretations of it. I know a bit of different Bibles other than the King James. Talked with, priests, clergymen. Not just Catholic, Protestant theologians, academics.
The thing with so many Christian-oriented religious people is, I don't hear. There's a lot of talk about love, And the opposite is not necessarily hate, it's justice.
Or I would say maybe even like a lack love, or anti in its truest Latin form of anti.
I guess what I'm talking about is of the different positive attributes of God. Love is one, patience is one, kindness is one. Most of those can exist in conjunction with each other, like they're not conflicting.
Oh yeah.
But the two that do conflict is love and justice. So in order and just to say how this happens, if I sin against God, he can show me love by, well, let's say he wants to glorify himself through love and justice, right? If he kind of like gives me a break, and he's kind of loving to me, or maybe if he says, okay, you got to go to purgatory for 100 days, but you have to be punished a little bit, but not for eternity, right?
Yeah.
Then he's showing some love, but it's not 100% love because I'm just not totally let off the hook, right?
Yeah.
And he's also showing justice because there is a little bit of a punishment, but not 100% punishment. And so, to glorify himself, God wants to show 100% of his attributes, not have to compromise one for the sake of another. Mm-hmm. So where the cross comes in is that on the cross, my sins are paid for, and so at great sacrifice, God's own Son, So it's 100% love, and yet the justice, yes, the
justice is visited upon him though too, which is
it's 100% justice. So it's so the cross is the one place. That's the to me The essential difference between Christianity and any other religion is that it allows God to be 100% loving and 100% just at the same time. And I feel like most other religions, they're just kind of compromising the two.
Well, I mean, that's that idea of confliction of love and justice. I don't know. Through your interpretation, yeah, I would agree with you 100% on what is love and just. That your idea of the cross is absolutely perfect for your interpretation of it too. But also, I think it's possible that you can be love and just, and they're not necessarily conflicts.
Like 100% of each?
Yeah, because I don't see them nearly as different.
Yeah.
I don't know if there is difference there, because I'm just thinking about my own relationships and thinking this through. The people that have loved me and shown me the most love have also been the ones that are most accountable with me.
Yeah.
And the sheer fact that they're able to be accountable with me is one of the greatest acts of love.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's...
I see that.
And that's just...
I guess, but we're not God, so...
No, we're not. But yeah. I'm just kind of carrying it through. So this idea can be interpreted
like if somebody say sins against me, slaps me in the face, say, right? I've treated other people. I haven't slapped people in the face, but I've treated other people in bad ways too, right? Yeah. So it's a bad thing, if someone lies to me, they shouldn't do it, but I've lied too. So I can't say that they deserve a huge punishment. Maybe just I'm a finite being. I'm a created being. Maybe they need a limited punishment, right? Justice would demand like eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, whatever.
But that's not just too.
Well, So like if I'm applying that to God, that's like saying, when we offend God, there's a finite punishment that could satisfy justice.
Well, what's your definition of justice then?
That the punishment fit the crime.
Okay.
So, like if you're in court and you're found guilty of killing someone, and the judge turns to you and says, Joe, the family of this person wants to make sure justice is served, and they're here to make sure that you pay what you killed their loved one. So your punishment is $100 fine, right? Yeah. And you're like, okay, judge, I'll pay it. And the family's like, that's not justice because the punishment didn't fit the crime. See? So, and I don't know what price you could pay on a human life.
That's always an interesting.
So, what price could we pay on offending God? Yeah. So, according to Christianity now, there's two ways that could be satisfied. One is an eternity in hell, where there is no end to the payment, The other is the Holy One of God taking our punishment for us. He has eternal worth and value. He would be a suitable sacrifice that would, where the punishment fits the crime. So that's why like most other religions will say yes, there is some kind of Hinduism. If you're reincarnated, you're not reincarnated as a higher being. If you're a bad person in this life, you'll go lower. There's still that sense of judgment, and there's still that sense of you must pay in the next life, and I guess Buddhism would say there is no
It depends where you're looking at in Buddhism.
I don't really know how that works, but most religions,
it's kind of like Hinduism. There's so many different ideas,
right? Okay,
and a lot of their.
So most religions do teach some sort of reward in the next life, and even though we're not perfect, you get rewarded according to your deeds. And Christianity, a lot of people who call themselves Christians go to church, haven't done their homework. They will tell you, if I'm a good person, I'll go to heaven. And so they really don't know what their own religion teaches. And that's part of that is because they've grown up in the church and they haven't bothered to really even read the Bible or ask questions. Because this is what I've discovered as I've interviewed different people.
And that's a
like
very
this.
true thing. A lot of people, I think one of the main things, if there is a God and all of that, granted that's not my belief, but for sake of conversation, and I have thought about these things too. The reason why at the beginning I said I think I would be fair on it is because I'm willing to ask myself the questions that I may not always like the answer to. And may have to ponder over a little bit more. But the fact that it's important for me, and I believe other human beings too, or should be, in my opinion.
You believe what?
In my opinion, they should ask those harder questions and seek it out for what resonates with them. Because, I mean, if God, in your sense, does exist, it's also through us, and there's pieces of that within us. And there is some wholly infinite within us. Small bits, but there is that there. And it's only through us and our own internal soul, if you will, that we can really find the truth. Not inside our heads, necessarily, but inside our soul. So we have to have that resonance of knowledge and understanding. And if something doesn't, to ask the question, why? Because it's not saying that that thing doesn't necessarily, but we don't fully understand why it doesn't yet, or have the complete knowledge of yet.
It's one of the themes of the Bible, or I don't know if it's a theme, but it's more like a phrase that keeps resonating all the way through, is it talks about people who have turned against God, and it keeps saying they did what was right in their own eyes. And there's another verse that says,
if you're relying just on your eyes,
there is a way that seems right to a man, but in the end it's the way of death. And so really what those verses are saying is, if we have any understanding of God, it's not because we've figured him out, you know, like we've discovered him.
I can agree.
This is why, as a Christian, I believe, you know, I need the Bible because I believe it's God's revelation. And I don't even think I can know everything. I mean, I know I can't know everything about God.
Wow.
I can't know everything about God. But he's revealed enough through the Bible, and mainly through the Bible, for me to know what I need to know. So one of the commandments says, "You shall not make and serve false gods." You know, the second commandment. If I even go through the Bible and pick and choose parts of, you know, like some people do, they only focus on the verses where it shows God loves us or whatever, you know, or if I go through religions and, you know, it's like a buffet table and I pick and choose what I want and what I like and I reject what I don't want, I'm basically constructing my own idea in my imagination of God. So I'm basically just like those statue makers back in the day, you know, that created an idol and worship it. And the thing that they find convenient about that idol is they can walk away from it. You know,
anytime they choose.
It's like, it's over there and I'm going over here, you know.
But I think the thing is, even in yourself, you had to ask questions that were hard within your context of the Bible. And that quest for knowledge, not saying right or wrong right off the bat, but asking and getting more information and studying and questioning yourself. That is such an important key to understanding.
And part of that has been reading the Bible. And I find something that I really don't like. It's like,
and figure out why.
This
conflicts with my whole perspective.
I didn't view God this way, or why does this person do that, or this is not convenient according to what I believe
and
already.
What is not convenient.
If I really truly believe that God is revealing himself through the Bible, I have to say, you know what, I think the problem isn't in the Bible, the problem is with me and my understanding, and I have to be patient and wait until I, you know, ask God. I think the Bible does say that if we seek him truly, sincerely, he rewards those who diligently seek him. So I believe God wants me to know more his will or himself. He wants me to know him more than I want to know him. So he's more interested in me. He's not going to hide himself from me for any reason, unless he needs to do that to teach me something,
or to carry out the next chain of events or whatever. But
for the most part, I believe God is good. And I mean, the Bible says he is good, and he rewards those who diligently seek him. So But I can't seek him on my own terms.
No.
I have to seek him on his terms, which is not always comfortable. As a matter of fact,
Well, that's the true
it's usually
question.
uncomfortable. You know?
That's the true question.
Yeah.
Of resonance isn't always fun.
No.
It's not always easy, and it
Yeah.
sometimes sucks.
Yeah.
And truly, when we ask ourselves, is this right? Is this not right?
Yeah.
That resonance usually takes effect,
Yeah.
whether it's comfortable or not, whatever. But I believe any person should seek out that resonance
Yeah.
and find what that
We
is.
definitely need to do more than just follow sports or talk about the weather or. Now, I'd like to just know a little bit more about you. I can turn the camera off, but I just like to know, like,
No.
are you,
Shit.
are you a student? Or
I am a master's student in sociology.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that goes along with what you've been interested in, and what you know about.
Well, actually, all that was also prior to education, to formal education.
Oh, okay.
I sought those things out completely myself.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a copy or two of the Quran. I've got
In
Hindu
English
texts.
or just what?
I have a couple different translations.
Okay. Yeah.
Got a bunch of Hindu
And you say
texts.
you're working in the field of special education?
No, I used to. I used to work for Ohio University as a consultant
Okay.
in special education.
And then you go to what, to University of Illinois, or?
No, right now I'm at DePaul.
Oh, okay.
But, I mean,
Yeah.
I've had a kind of strange work history in life
Yeah.
in general, to say the least.
Would you in mid-20s, or?
I'm in my late 20s.
Okay. Yeah.
Real late 20s.
And you live around here?
Yeah, I live right down the street.
How do you like it?
Dude, I love this area.
Yeah.
It's quiet
Yeah.
at night.
Yeah.
Like, I can actually sleep through the
Lived
day.
here a while, or?
About coming up on like a year and a half, 2 years.
Oh, okay.
But I lived in Uptown too prior to that for about 7 years. Or
Okay.
5 years.
Yeah.
My 7th year.
Yeah. I've been here about 20 years, so I've seen the neighborhood change a little bit.
Yeah, I bet so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a changing time, but that's just how things go too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's kind of nice to
Yeah.
see things change and evolve.
What do you hope to do with a sociology degree then?
I hope to
Making
learn.
it up as you go along?
I got into it because I wanted to
Yeah.
understand these
What was
things
your
more.
undergraduate in?
Sociology.
Oh, okay. I love sociology. I
It's
love social
amazing.
studies.
Yeah.
You know,
Humans are
I like,
fascinating.
they are. As a
Fascinating.
matter of fact, like, I mean, I hope that I can, I guess I view what I do with this,
Yeah.
as far as talking to people. I don't really think that, I know I can't convince anyone of, to be a Christian or whatever. I do believe, like the Bible talks about the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
I do believe the Holy Spirit works through things, us stepping out on faith, that kind of thing. So I kind of feel like I have the freedom to just have these conversations and let God do what God's going to do, if that makes sense.
And that's
But
a
it's
great way to-
incredibly interesting to me to find out just what makes people tick.
Yeah.
Like, I love to ask questions. Do you have a purpose in life? Things like that. And
Those are a great series of questions
yeah,
too.
and kind of get at the heart of things, and not spend months getting to know someone talking about sports before I ask them like a serious question. And I do find that strangers probably are more open with me and a fellow stranger, because if it's someone that you know and love, you're not going to want to offend them.
There's a
so
role
you-
there. There's purpose. There's obligation. There's that kind of
Yeah.
thing. And I've actually looked and kind of studied this thing, that sometimes the stranger is the best
Yeah,
person and the one you're able to be the most honest with,
yeah.
because there is no connection. After this, I mean, or
Yeah.
maybe not this
We may bump
particular
into each
one,
other again,
but like,
Probably not.
who knows?
I mean, it'd be
And
nice.
either
I'd
way.
love it,
Yeah, I mean, I'm here every day, to be
Okay,
honest. So,
yeah.
I mean, you just stroll in here, I'll probably be here.
Let me ask you this: have you ever had anyone, like a Christian or whatever, trying to share their faith with you, or
Yeah.
how does
Definitely.
what typically, like, because there's like as Christians, Jesus says, "Go into all the world and make disciples." I mean, we're called, we're ordered, we're told to do that. Most Christians in this day don't want to be associated with someone like the Jehovah's Witnesses or whatever, so we feel like, okay, the best, most polite way of sharing our faith is to invite someone to church, right, with us, and let the pastor do the convincing or whatever. So I really want to convince people, no, go into all the world means go into all the world, It doesn't mean get the world to come to our meetings, So, I don't know, like, as a stranger, how did you feel about this conversation? Is this something that you feel would be good for more Christians to do, even though you're not a Christian?
I mean, I think it's just good for people to do.
Be honest and open and talk.
Or just to have dialogue, too. I mean, that's so important.
Yeah.
I mean, to have dialogue and to have rational dialogue.
Yeah.
And respectful dialogue. It's a lost art. In all sense.